Hello everyone, I am Hong Lin and today I'm going to do a presentation on what are the common eating disorder risk factor and factors that affect the recovery among female athletics. So why I choose to do this topics. First of all, eating disorders are nutrition-related disease characterized by abnormal and disturbed eating habits. And one common misconception is that athletics have a good understanding of nutrition, know how to eat well, and therefore you do not experience eating disorders. However, this is not the truth because athletics, especially female athletics, seem to be at higher risk of developing eating disorders due to the pressure from the sport environment, such as the pressure to be at a certain weight to participate in the sports. Also, within the athletic context, athletics participate in different type of sport might also be at a different risk level of developing eating disorders. Um, for example, lean sport and non-lean sport, athletics and non-athletic sport. Lastly, because of the difference between athletic specific barriers and non-athletic specific barriers to recoveries, it is necessary to develop a treatment plan designed for only athletics. And speaking of this, we need to consider a factor that assist and hinder the recovery process. So all of this, I come up with my nutrition question is what are the common eating disorder risk factors and the factor that affect the recovery among female athletics. So while doing my research, I recognized two patterns. So there are general risk factors, which mean that factors that affect both general population and athletics, and then there's sport-related risk factors. So the risk factor, the general ones that being studied the most, and that I found were self-esteem levels and body dissatisfaction. The pattern that common in the study was self-esteem is not associated with eating disorder in female athletics. The other pattern is the relationship between body dissatisfaction and eating disorder remain unclear because of conflicting findings. I think one study mentioned that they did not take into consideration the athletic context. So the person might feel satisfied with their body when compared to general population, but might not be satisfied when being compared to other athletics. The Regarding the sport related risk factor, I recognize that there is conflicting findings regarding the association between endurance strength sport and the risk of developing eating disorders. However, there are consistent studies that show athletics participate in leanness focused and weight sensitive sport are more likely to develop eating disorders. The studies that access this part, that investigate on this part, did mention that the athletics were cheerleader, cross country, and track field type of sport. And when speaking at the effects of sport-related factors on recovery process, they're either assist the recovery process or hinder the recovery process. So the most common factors that assist the recovery process is when the athletic raise concerned about their sport performance too. So they experience negative impacts on their practice and competition. That's why they choose to recover from eating disorder. The other term that they use is desire to regain health for sport participation, but these two basically mean the same. So I would say these studies are consistent. Regarding factors that hinder the recovery process, there are two particular patterns. First is the pressure from the sport environment challenge the effort to recover from eating disorders. So, like, um, if the athletics might feel that whenever season start they have to be at certain weight in order to do good, to perform good, so that is the pressure. The other is lack of support from the significant others, including coach and teammates. These people might be the people that the athletics are surrounded with. So yes, lack of support from them might make it harder for the athletics to recover. Last part is conclusion. So answer to research question are regarding the general risk factor. Self-esteem is not associated with eating disorder, and the relationship between body dissatisfaction and eating disorder remain unclear. Regarding the certain sport type precede the onset of eating disorder, athletics participate in leanness focus and weight sensitive sport are more susceptible to eating disorder than the other general sport types. Desire to regain health for sport participation among the top most common factors to assist the recovery. Lastly, the sport environment's pressure and lack of support from close one, including coach and teammates, were the most common hindrance factors. I realized two gaps in the literature. So first, the literature didn't consider non-sport and sport-related risk factor together, so they was discussed as two distinct groups in the recent studies. So further studies should investigate the association between these two types, whether one might relate or cause higher tendency to the others. There was also limited studies on the influence of coach and teammate on the eating disorders recovery process. So they usually would study as a whole group, not on them. So further studies should focus solely on the influence of coach and teammate to eating disorder among female athletics. Lastly is application of literature interview. I think this can be used to develop the education plan and be used at the beginning of every new session, every new season. So take into consideration the risk factors, the train athletic to deal with possible sport environment pressure. Coaches also be trained about eating disorder and evaluate every new season. Can also be used to design treatment programs which consider the positive and negative effects of sport. Healthcare provider being aware of this would be good too. And lastly, it can be used as reading resource for people who are close to athletics, like families, friends. Can be used as a fact sheet to spread awareness, because if they acknowledge their roles in the eating disorder development as well as the recovery process, it would be easier to prevent or help their family members. So this is my reference page, and thank you guys for listening. Have a good day.